Alright, so for my army today, I'm bringing Necrons. First time I've ever played them, so I'm basically doing a bunch of everything and trying to keep my tactics simple since they're mostly shooty as far as I can tell. So starting off, we have a Lord with the Orb of Eternity, Resurrection Orb, the Warlord trait, Enduring Will, and he has a War Scythe weapon upgrade. Then we have a Chronomancer, which has the Veil of Darkness heirloom, so I'll be able to take him and another core unit and just move around the map once per game. And then he has the Photonic Transubjugator, which will allow him once per turn to turn one damage attack to 0. And then we have the Technomancer, which is basically going to be my fancy medic. I'm just going to run around and heal, and he has the small bodyguard of Crypto Thralls. Yeah, and he has the Canoptic Cloak, so he'll be moving fast, and he has a Voltic Staff for shooting. Pretty good shooting, surprisingly. Actually, Necron shooting weapons are pretty good. Then on to troops, we have 2 units of Necron Warriors. One has a 20-man unit with Gauss Flare. The other one is a 20-man unit of Gauss Reaper. And then we have a unit of 5 Immortals to bring up the back line. Then for elites, we have a unit of Flayed Ones, just 5. Then we have a unit of Death Marks. I played Mechanicus, so I know these guys are absolute scumbags. So let's see how they translate on the actual tabletop. Then in Fast Attack, we have a unit of Canoptic Wraiths. These guys, they're combat monkeys. I mean, they're not the toughest, but they seem pretty decent. And then I have 2 units of Scarabs, which are at 5-man. Then to vehicles, I have a troop transport of a Ghost Ark. And then I have Canoptic Doomstalker for my heavy support. So this thing is going to be doing a good amount of damage, hopefully. And then, of course, how can I play Necrons without bringing a Monolith? They're not as strong as I once remembered when I first played against these suckers. But this one is good enough. It's just a plain cheap Monolith, and it's going to be my anchor, or wall. So that's 2,000 points of Necrons. Let's see how this goes.
Alright, you guys, so today I am playing the Salamanders, which are all about Thunderhammers, Flamers, and Meltas. So I figured I would give it a go. So I have both of their name characters, because I figured why not. So starting, and 2 patrol detachments, so each one is a captain over a different detachment. So over here, starting with Adrax Agatone, he's not the warlord, but he is the captain of this detachment. Right behind him are 5 assault intercessors, just kind of because troops, I don't know. And then behind them are regular tactical marines. There is a flamer in there, so that's about it. Behind them is just a full plump squad of Terminator assault guys, Thunderhammer, Storm Shield, I forgot their name for a second. And then behind them in the fast attacks are 3 Invader ATVs, so it's a single squad with multi-meltas, because Salamanders. Moving on to the other patrol detachment, it's Vulcan Heston, who is my warlord, and so I had to give him Anvil of Strength for his warlord trait, which gives him +2 strength. So he's a beefy man. Behind him is another identical tactical squad, so it's got a flamer. Behind them in the elites are a full squad of 6 aggressors with their Flame Storm gauntlets. So this is just a bunch of flamers and power fists in one group, because flamers and salamanders. So also in the elites is the Venerable Dreadnought just behind. I swapped his Stormbolter for a heavy flamer, and I swapped his assault cannon for a multi-melta, because salamanders. If you don't know by now, it's salamanders. Attack bike, I actually just had 50 points left over, so he's just a bare bones attack bike with just a heavy bolter. But behind them is a full pimped out squad of eradicators, 3 with the heavy multi-melta, or the heavy melta rifles. Yeah, 2 multi-meltas, and then just the sergeant. So he also has a heavy multi-melta rifle, or heavy melta rifle as well. But anyway, all in all, a bunch of flamers, a bunch of meltas, and some hammers.
Alright, so we don't have any cards to show for this mission yet. We have to make them, but we do have them on our side. So this is Secure missing artifacts, which is control 1, control 2, control more. And, oh my god, it's that one again. Where we move the objectives.
Oh, jeez.
Alright, so going forward, I have very little idea of what I'm doing. My overall idea is I have a shooty army, and I have a few tricks up my sleeve, so I need to facilitate that. So, I want a lot of open lanes and open spaces to shoot up everything. And I also want some of the middle objectives and stuff like that to have some tricks up their sleeve, so I might be able to do something cool with it. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. I had no further plans.
Yeah, that makes both of us. So most of my stuff is pretty short range, so I didn't want a lot of like movement blockers. I also didn't want a lot of really far open stuff because, again, all of my stuff is pretty short ranged. So set up a little bit more buildings than usual, but I kind of ran out of ideas by the end, so I just put that grate down. And that was pretty much it. I didn't really have much of a plan, really just to help kind of keep me in cover and reduce long-range shooting as much as possible, I guess.
Alright, so for secondaries, I'm going to go with Ancient Machineries, which is very similar to that Orc one, which is basically my opponent selects 2 center field objectives and and I select 1, and then I can use a Necron Core or a Cryptek unit to perform an action on it, and I will gain a certain amount of points on it, or 3 points if I complete that action, and I can do that multiple times on multiple objectives per turn, so that's pretty good. And no prisoners. This is the new no prisoners, and if I kill like 50 wounds, I get an extra point, and if I kill over 100, then I get an extra 2 victory points. So he has a lot of high wound models and stuff, so I'm going to go with that. And engage on all fronts. I couldn't think of much else, but I'm basically going to move forward and push, so I'm hoping that this will work it. So,
all right. And for me, mine, I don't know how well they'll work out for me. I chose engage on all fronts because I have a bit more mobile units, as well as some that can like teleport in. So I thought that might be easier to do. I have grind them down as well because, again, my guys might be a little harder to kill than some of his. They might not. We'll find out. And then retrieve Nachman data because, again, I'll be in. I should have a relatively easy time getting into different sections. So that is my hope.
alrighty then. So, as far as deployment goes, I first wanted to get my monolith out of the way because it's so big, so there's a limit of places where it can go, so I didn't want to screw my movement up. So I placed him in a big open spot. And after that, it was just me lining up certain units with its proper pairing. The scarabs were going to be close to objectives. Flayed ones were put at the very end to counter like any melee push. Warriors are in the center in order to be flexible. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So my battle line and battle plans and stuff, it was just anchoring around the monolith, and then everything else is just going to spread around. So that was my plan.
I don't know if I can even use the word plan, you guys. Okay, so essentially, I know he has longer range than I do, so I had to keep everything hidden on the most likely chance he goes first, because I historically don't have good luck with going first. Yeah, so I kind of just tried to hide stuff, and if I get first turn, then fine. But so I tried to keep stuff together with pairings. I kept my Terminators in deep strikes, that way they can come in whenever. Hopefully that isn't too big of a deal. My characters kind of stuck around people that they could help, and so there's one side with a little more punch to it per se, but then another side has a little bit more melta. So we'll see how it goes.
Alright, so for the first turn, if I go first, I'm basically going to get a lot of free shooting. This is a shooty army, and I'm not going to have that many targets. but what little I have is going to be nuked. He has very little army until his Terminators show up from Deep Strike. So, as far as it seems, if I go first, I'm going to nuke a good portion of his army. If I go second, I'm going to nuke a good portion of his army. that's literally how I see it. So, that's what I see if I go first or second. It's the same result. It's just map mobility and map presence is the only difference. Second turn, you're going to be more out and open. I doubt you're going to be able to kill the monolith first turn anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, essentially, I don't know if it matters. A lot of my stuff is pretty short range. So really, if I go first, I don't actually even know how much I would move, because right now a lot of stuff is pretty much hidden. I would obviously have to try and hold on to a couple of objectives, at least the two in the back. Maybe the or I guess it's the top for you guys. Try and run across a little bit, but other than that, I don't really have any. Yeah, I don't know.
Wow, deep strategic insight.
Yeah, I really have no idea what I'm gonna.
All right, then let's see who's first.
I feel like it would almost be easier if I went second.
The thing did it again. It turned. No, I'm trying to roll, and then that doesn't count. I want to redo. Fine. Space Marine's turn 1. It changes nothing.
Alright guys, so essentially I moved forward. Shock surprise. Okay, so at the top,
Command
the
phase.
assault intercessors. Oh, nothing happened in the command phase. Oh, except Vulcan used his Forge Father rule on the Eradicators. Again, a huge shock. But anyway, so the assault intercessors ran forward. They rolled a 6, so they went super far. The aggressors rolled a 2, so they did not. And as did Adrax, so they're just kind of lagging behind a little bit. My tacticals from underneath the Eradicators ran forward. They got an okay speed, so just to kind of put a little pressure in the middle, I guess. The Eradicators did not move. Vulcan tucked in just a little bit. The attack bike just poked out just to kind of be in range of this objective, as did the invaders. The other tactical squad towards the bottom ran forward, and they're actually just or they're either just outside or just inside the range of that objective. But either way, my venerable dreadnought is there, who also moved forward. So just essentially a lot of moving. Not a lot of shooting is gonna go on. So the question is, what will survive till my next turn? All right, you guys. So essentially, everything that could shoot was by the monolith. So that is what I did. I was able to bring it down to its the next tier of bracket, so it has 11 wounds left. But I know it can repair and stuff, so we'll see how much of that actually sticks. But so basically, the only thing that happened was I put 13 wounds on the monolith or something like that, whatever that math is. But yeah, so probably a good shoot. I don't know. All right, so I have engage on all fronts, and I have Nachman data.
One of them.
Yeah. So that's it.
Okay. Alright, so my monolith, I survived as I expected, but it took quite a beating, so having lost the first turn kind of denied me some chances of pulling some shenanigans. So basically what I did was I moved my monolith forward to get more range. It may or may not survive. My scarabs moved up to the middle. My Necron warriors moved up. Also in the command phase, my lord gave the Necron warriors with the long range, 24 inches, +1 to hit. The Chronomancer gave the Goss Reaper warriors the 5-up invulnerable save and reroll charges. And then after that, my Necron Scarabs moved up towards the objective, started doing their action because they are canoptic, so they can perform the action. The Technomancer moved forward with 10 inches because of an item he has, so he flew over. He was able to heal the monolith for 3 wounds in total at the very end. And just the rest of my army just moved into position to intercept my opponent. And that's about it. Alright, so now for my shooting phase, I started off with the Necron Warriors, which I moved with the Veil of Darkness from the Chronomancer. We fired at the Venerable Dreadnought, and we used Disintegration Capacitors for 1 CP, which rolls of 6 automatically hit the target. And so these guys have 2 shots each at strength 5, and they successfully did 8 wounds in total, which my opponent completely, well, they did a bunch more wounds, but he failed 8, and then he used the CP to reroll 1 to save it, and he made a feel no pain, so he has 2 wounds left, so that was pretty decent. And then up top, I was going to have I had my death marks fire at Adrax Agatone because they have the sniper ability, and they successfully did 5 wounds to him in total. One of them did a mortal wound on their 2 wound roll because of the death mark ability, and so they failed 1, made an extra 1, so 5 right on him, and he failed all his 4-up invuls. Then I was going to fire at the aggressors with my Ghost Arc, but then he spent a CP stratagem. What was it called?
The self-sacrifice.
Yes, you. Yeah, and so I couldn't shoot anyone except for the intercessors that were there, so I just mag dumped them. The Ghost Arc fired at them, did 1 wound. Immortals fired on them, did 2 wounds. Then I had the Necron Warriors fire on them, and they used Solar Pulse to remove their cover save ability, and I used Relentless Onslaught, which every unmodified hit roll of 6 gives me another hit. And so that with the +1 to hit from the Lord and the reroll 1s, these guys were hitting on 2s, and they just disintegrated the entire squad of intercessors in total. And then after that, my Canopic Doomstalker fired at the aggressor, made 6 hits, rolled, and did kind of terrible with the wounds. I spent 1 CP to make one of them reroll them. They did well, and then I only did 3 damage total, which killed 1. So when I rolled my d6, that was absolutely garbage. That was disappointing. And then the Monolith fired at the Invader ATVs and whiffed hard. He successfully killed 1 ATV, but he could have easily killed the second one, but my opponent rolled 2 6s for his save. Yeah, that was ridiculous. And so there's 2 ATVs that survived. So we'll see how this game continues. Alright, we're doing it live. So these Necron Warriors are charging this Venerable Dreadnought. They got re-roll to charge, so fail. Delete these dice. The number 1 feature of TTS is the ability to delete dice. I need a 9. I make it. They will be pouring in. And then before I do that, I'll just quickly move over here. These guys are going to charge these guys. Actually, you know what? No, what am I thinking? No. Wait. Do I want to? Yes. Alright. I make it. Well, that was good. Alright, so I started off my combat phase. I was very confident that with the very damaged and wounded Venerable Dreadnought, which apparently it wasn't, it was not bracketed at all, that the combat with there was fine. So I decided to start with the Scarab. So I spent 1 CP for self-destruct, where I select one unit the Scarabs pile in. I select one unit that's nearby within 6 inches, and then I roll a dice. On a 2 through 5, that's a D3 mortal wounds. On a 6, that's 3 mortal wounds. I rolled a 3, and I did 1 mortal wound, and then that Scarab auto dies. And then, and then they swung their attacks, and I probably shouldn't have sacrificed that Scarab because my remaining 4 Scarabs were able to do 3 wounds in total. And then the Venerable Dreadnought, when I fought with him against my Necron Warriors, my opponent did not interrupt. I hit him with 15 attacks, did 4 wounds. He saved 3 of them, and so the Venerable Dreadnought is still alive. Then he swung back. The Venerable Dreadnought killed 3 of my warriors, and then he swung back with his Space Marines, and he did a total of 7 wounds, which I cannot... he did 7 wounds total. I was able to save a few. And so I lost the Scarab. When it came to reanimation, I was not able to save a single Scarab Swarm, but I was able to save 1 Necron Warrior. So that was the fight phase. Alright, so for my turn, I have the basic of engaging all fronts, the Scarabs. Now that I think about it, with my 12-inch charge for the Scarabs, I could have gone onto the other side of those guys because they fly, and then I would have a full engage on all fronts because they're on the other side. They're too close to the center of the map. I could have... I just keep forgetting that I have engaged on all fronts. I could have gotten the full 3, but... Well, I do have my basic objective at the center, so secure missing artifacts is we have to hold our home objective at the end of our turn. As long as we have that, we gain 3 points. And, slowly but surely, making it through.
Alright, you guys, so essentially, now that he's kind of moved out, I've been able to kind of, as well, do that. Yeah, so basically everything moved forward. My Terminators deep struck in to kind of try and take out some of his back line, starting with the Giant Doomstalker, because my Eradicators move forward to touch the wall, so that way they are ready to start melting stuff, and my Aggressors move forward as well, so hopefully they'll be able to get in. Adrax is still, unfortunately, lagging behind a bit, but, you know, he'll do something eventually. My Tactical Marines in the middle ran from the Scarabs to basically take the objective over here. And my Invader ATVs, for better or worse, moved closer to the monolith. So we'll see if that was a mistake. And the Dreadnought stayed in combat. I did have a hard time deciding because there's a lot of just small arms fire that could go on at all these Necron warriors. But I decided to keep him in because he can still shoot into combat. That should help even it out a little bit. And then hopefully he won't die in combat with his 1 wound left. So we'll see. Alright, you guys, so shooting phase was, for the most part, uneventful. Monolith is gone. We'll get to that in a second. So the Aggressors shot at the Necron Warrior Squad down below them, and they did 5 wounds. So they killed 5 of them, but then 3 ended up coming back. Adrax shot off 3 of the flayed ones, but 1 came back. Then I jumped over down to the Dreadnought, and he was able to kill 2 Necron Warriors because he did some crappy rolls. But he still had a Melta, so it's hard to go wrong there. But so he killed 2 Warriors, but it looks like they came back.
Yep.
And then I jumped over to this... What did I jump over to? This attack bike shooting at the Scarabs. He was able to take 2 off with the help of Vulcan Heston as well. He also shot into the Scarabs. Then the Invader ATVs, they shot their Meltas into the monolith, but they didn't do very much damage, actually. I think they did 3 damage, which was a shame. Yeah. And then they shot all their bolt guns at his...
Crypto Thralls.
Crypto Thralls, there we go. Killed 1 because they did 2 damage. And then it came all around to the Eradicators, who, because his monolith is titanic, they could all see him, so they total obliterationed it and stayed true to their name. But what was unforeseen was the violent explosion. And so that went. My Invader ATVs took 2 mortal wounds. His Canoptic Race took 2 mortal wounds. His other
Crypto Thrall.
Crypto Thrall took 2 wounds. So that killed off the squad. And his Technomancer also took exactly 4 wounds to the face. So he is dead, but the model is still there. So I assume there's something to that.
Yeah.
That I do not know. And then, yeah, so visually uneventful with the exception of the monolith. But there was a bit that might have been useful.
The aggressors fired at the Necron warriors and successfully killed 5. Then I resurrected 2 back, so they killed 3 total. Reason was because my dynasty gives me, if I didn't move and it's a single damage, I get +1 to my armor save. And they're shooting through these, or not even the woods. So I have Protocol to the Eternal Guardian up, so I count as having light cover on. And so basically I had 2 up saves, and I've saved a ton of damage. Otherwise he would have probably obliterated the squad if it wasn't for that.
Yeah, because the wounds going into them was 29.
Yeah.
But you saved
so
24
many
of them.
Yeah. And, yeah, pretty much. And as far as the Technomancer, it's a 1 CP strat, which I'll do now, and on a 4-up, he lives. That sucks. He's dead. Technomancer is dead. He failed.
Yeah.
He rolled it on a 1. And that was the shooting phase.
Alright, you guys, so I actually had a pretty successful charge phase here, except for Adrax. He just kind of got left behind, so he's probably gonna die, if I had to guess. But so he didn't make his charge. It was a long shot anyway against the flayed ones. The aggressors got in though, so hopefully they'll just punch them to death. I did want to leave my Venerable Dreadnought alone, so I charged my Invader ATVs in, and we'll see if that was worth it or not. It actually really just moved them closer to the Canoptic Wraiths, so that may have been a mistake. And then my Terminators got in on the first roll. I didn't have to use command points or anything, and they got in, and they are hopefully going to beat this thing to death.
Good luck.
So yeah. All right, you guys. So combat went kind of okay. Aggressors, they were in first, so I punched the heck out of those flayed ones, unsurprisingly. And then they consolidated into this Ghost Arc. Then I went over to my Terminators, which I used the Strength of the Primarch ability. But what we didn't realize is the thing had a 4-up invuln, which is why it's still alive.
Miraculously saved a lot. Ridiculously a lot.
Yeah, and I also forgot to use my Fury of the First stratagem, so I just let that go, which would have given them more hits. But anyway, so long story short, that guy survived a whole bunch of Thunder Hammers. And then my Invader ATVs went, and they rolled really well on the hit. I only missed 1, but then on the wound, all of them missed except for 1, which he then saved. And then he killed my Dreadnought before it had a chance to do anything. So yeah. All in all, pretty garbage assault phase.
Yeah.
All right, so I had 1 point on my primary because at the time I was holding 1. I did get 3 points for holding my main objective. I got 3 points for engage on all fronts this time around. I did get another Nachman data, and I'll put the actual points in at the end of the game. But and I believe I got grind them down.
That's at the end of the whole round. You killed the flayed ones.
Yeah. Oh, that's really all I killed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I didn't even kill anything last.
No.
Oh, well, I also killed the monolith, though, so that's 2 things. 2 grind them downs.
Mm-hmm. All right, so for my movement, well, for my command phase, my Lord gave all his buffs to the Necron warriors, and these Necron warriors at the bottom were beyond 6 inches of my Technomancer, so they do not have any special buffs on them. So, the overall thing is the front has changed. So I pull back the Lord and the Necron warriors to go deal with the Terminators. I fall back with the Canoptic Doomstalker. I have my Wraiths move in. I knew that the Terminators were eventually going to go back here, so I figured I could just pull back. The Immortals fell back. Well, they didn't fall back. They moved to intercept the Assault Terminators. Now, the Aggressors up top charged the Ghost Ark, which has Transhuman on it naturally. And so I was like, it has a great chance of just surviving and just being a tar pit. So we're in a good position over there. My one little Scarab that survives has moved up to get into the Eradicators, and then my one Chronomancer is moving up to do some shooting and some stuff. Yeah. Alright, so for my shooting phase, after pulling everything back, my Chronomancer fired first at the Space Marine squad that was above, did 1 wound with his Aeon Stave. Then, after the Counter-Tech Doomstalker fell back, I had the Death Marks all target Agrax Agatone, and they killed him. But then my opponent used a 2 CP stratagem to, on a 4-up, bring him back with 1 wound. He rolled a 6, so he's alive. And then my Immortals fired at the Assault Terminators, did 1 wound. Then my Necron Warriors, in rapid fire, shot at the Assault Terminators, and I used Disintegration Capacitors, which any roll of 6 automatically wounds the target, and Relentless Onslaught, which an unmodified roll of 6 scores an additional hit. I then rolled 32 shots, not a single 6. But I was able to re-roll my ones to hit, and they had +1 to hit because of the Lord, so I re-rolled the ones, and I got 1 6 from that, which exploded and auto-wounded. And in the end, I successfully did 1 wound to the Assault Terminators because they have a 1-up save, so that was very disappointing. Yeah, and then the Ghost Ark up top shot at the Aggressors and did 2 wounds. And that is it.
Ooh, neat. Oh, it's such an easy charge, too. Okay.
Yeah, so let's see if this works. Oh my god. Yeah, they make it 7.
They do.
Indeed.
Not by much, but
yeah.
they make it.
And then over here,
Oh,
the ATVs go.
he's very in.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I could totally do this. That would be true. Well, he has fly, I believe, so 10-inch movement. What? 4, 6, 7.
Then you have -2 for going through the trees.
Yeah, so he would have 7 and then 3. So he would be right here.
Yeah.
Screw you over. And then MVP Scarab, charge the Eradicators. Yes, he makes it. Alright, so the combat phase did not go too well. The Canoptic Wraiths swung and finished off 1 Terminator. It was pathetic. Then the Chronomancer swung, did absolutely nothing. I thought he had better stuff. I must have mistaken him for the Technomancer. My Scarab up top swung against the Eradicators. Didn't do anything. Almost had a wound, but my opponent saved it. And then the swings back. The Invader ATV killed 1 of my Necron Warriors. Well, actually, did it? I still have to roll the on a 5-up. No, it's dead. So they killed 1. And then up top, the Ghost Ark swung against the Aggressors, did nothing. They swung back. They did 12 wounds to it. Because despite the fact it has Transhuman, decided to roll dozens of 5-ups. And and then he swung back with his Assault Terminators, and they killed 4 of my Wraiths. I mean, he whiffed hard on all his hits and wounds, but he still managed to hit enough, and I could not roll my 4-up invuln saves to save my life. So that was very disappointing. Yeah. Alright, so I managed to hold 1, hold 2, hold more at the beginning. At the end of my turn, do have control of the secure missing artifacts, which he did take from me, but since the claiming is at the end of the turn, I just moved extra units on top. So his 1 to my 3. Then I have engaged on all fronts, and I did finish Ancient Machineries at the end of last turn, and then another version of that is on the way. And no prisoners here and there, so we'll see how this game goes. It's I'm ahead right now, but it's not looking that good.
All right, you guys. So essentially, everything moved that could move. My invader ATV also fell back, but I use hit and run warfare because they are classified as bikers. So they're able to shoot even after they fell back. So obviously, that combat was just obviously not their strong suit. So I'm gonna try it a little differently, and see if I can just shoot those Necrons off that objective because they are super annoying. And yeah, I mean everything. In the command phase, Vulcan gave the Eradicators again the double shoot stuff, or not the double shoot, the reroll hits and wounds on their Meltas, and that was it. Yeah. All right, you guys. So this shooting was a little more, stuff happened. So I used where is it? Immolation protocols. So my aggressors flamers turned into pistol flamers, and they were able to take the final 2 wounds off the Ghost Arc, which was nice, just by sheer numbers. And then basically everything else that could shoot shot at that giant squad of Necron warriors, with one exception, which I'll talk about in a second. But so basically all these guys were able to chip away, at the Necrons, but then the Eradicators came in and did the heavy lifting on those Necron warriors and just finished melting them. The exception is my Invader ATVs shot at their multi-meltas at the Chronomancer, and they rolled garbage, with exception of one that got through, but then he had an item which nullified the first damage that he took at the turn. So essentially they did nothing. And I think that was it for shooting. Everything focused on Necron warriors. They disappeared. Ghost Arc disappeared. So yeah, right now I have 2 towards my grind them down for this turn. Alright, you guys, so here I have the aggressors trying to make a charge on these immortals. If they can make it, that's a big deal. We'll see what happens.
No.
Well, alright, you guys, that was it. Alright, guys, so as you know, in the charge phase, my aggressor tried to charge the immortals, didn't work, so nothing happened there. So basically, it was just my Terminators that fought. They were able to kill the last 2 of the Canoptic Wraiths, and then they consolidated into the Death Marks and the Doomstalker, and they took 1 wound from my Death Marks. But yeah, so pretty simple fight phase. Alright, you guys, so obviously Battle Round 3 at the beginning, I had 2 objectives. I was able to hold on to my precious artifact, so my main objective, so giving me another 3 points. I got 3 points for being engaged in all fronts, on every single front. My grind them down, I have 4 points for now. And I tried to pull off the Nachman data. I had my character do it, but I did not roll a 1, so he didn't do it. So yeah, not bad, not great, but of course from this point on I'm in a pretty solid position for primaries, which will be the bigger chunks of points going forward.
Alright, so we're calling it there at this point. There's nothing I can really do to come back from that. I might be able to consolidate my position and hold off for 1 more turn, but it's all the turns after that that causes me trouble. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to call it there and stop. So, overall, so Salamanders win with their Melta forces. And,
Salamanders.
Yeah. Alright, so for our game, our MVP and LVP, my LVP is the Canoptic Wraiths, because when I needed them to actually work, when I needed them to go and intercept and fight, they did nothing.
Yeah.
Trash. And then MVP, simply because of how much damage it did, was the Necrons with the Gauss Reaper. They showed up, really hurt the Venerable Dreadnought, finished it off in melee.
Oh, yeah.
So technically they're the ones who did the most work in the entire game. So that was my MVP. So what do you got?
Yeah, so for my MVP, I would have to say most of my units actually did really well for themselves. I'm a little surprised, but I'm glad about that. Because usually they don't do so well. Yeah, What was I saying? Yeah. So the Eradicators, I think, because they were able to take out the Monolith, they were able to finish off that Necron squad. They were kind of able to really do some of that heavy lifting. I would say they were my MVPs. Even though, my ATVs did well for themselves, my aggressors ended up doing okay for themselves. Like, everything did good for itself, I think. However, out of all of those things, my LVP would have to be probably Adrax Agato. His stats are really good. The problem was he never got a chance to use any of those things. It's probably my fault, sure. But he basically just took it to the face a whole bunch of times. He actually died straight up. And then I had used a stratagem, so he was able to come back with 1 wound, but then he literally just did nothing the game. He wasn't even in range to do any kind of buffs or anything, so yeah, he was probably the worst off as far as it goes.
And then from there, as far as we could have done differently, well, as a first game for Necrons, I guess for me it was mostly just matching the correct pairs. What I should have done with the Canoptic Wraiths, instead of pulling them back, is to move them forward and go for the guarantee against these Intruder ATVs. They would have easily killed those, no problem.
Yeah,
the full squad.
The Space Marines over here.
Yeah, these
if they got that far, they could have definitely cleared the attack back. Like, they could have taken a lot more here, because they do have a lot of attacks, and they actually have pretty good strength and damage. The problem was they went up against the Terminators that have the flat 3, so every wound that got through basically killed one off.
Yeah.
So that was probably just a mismatch on your end.
Yeah, the Death Marks actually did exactly what I expected. They zeroed down a character and they were just deleting them. So they actually did well. If I probably included 1 or 2 more into the squad, it would have finished one in a single turn. Yeah. And so, technically, any regular character would have died in that situation, but because he was Primaris, he survived with 1. So that happened. So these guys actually were doing pretty well. They did their job well. The Scarabs did well. They were able to do objectives, and they held them. The Immortals... And so the thing was, though, up here, the Flayed ones ultimately failed and just helped as a boost. I keep forgetting these aggressors are basically good at everything. And melee as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one thing I forget. The Monolith, it survived with its huge survivability. It was dealing out some good damage, but it didn't really have an invuln save, so...
Which is kind of weird. I guess maybe they were toughness and the amount of wounds.
Well, there's another thing. I think it's the Test Strike Vault that does have an invuln save, so that could have been done better. So it's hard to tell. It's hard to decide. So
yeah, because I think you had some good moves with your units, but I think it just being new, I think there was probably some tactical.
I expected more from the. Yeah, I expected 3 or 4 Terminators to die at best. Well, I expected 2 or 3 to die from that mass shooting. It was ridiculous how that absolutely failed.
Well, you had a weird amount, or a lack of
6s.
AP.
Yeah. I did have some good AP, but I had no 6s when I used that stratagems for 6s, exploding 6s, and auto wound 6s. So that was very disappointing. So I can see why people bring 3 Canoptic Doomstalkers. If I dropped the Monolith and brought 3 of these, it would have been a very different game. But the Monolith is cool.
Yeah, maybe next time you just need to take 3 Monoliths. Just commit fully. Just all the Monoliths.
Yeah, go in and be crazy.
Yeah. Because I think they can teleport units too and stuff, right?
It's just they use as a deep strike marker, and
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So for me, it's mostly if I would have just ignored these Assault Terminators, I would have done much better. I would have it just kept going out.
Yeah. That's a hard call to make, because they would have ended up working their way through the entire back line there.
Yeah, but I could have just moved.
There wasn't much left on this side either. So.
Yeah. So if I had my guys push out and just shoot and just drop these aggressors. So actually, if I had all the shooting I did against the Terminators go against these aggressors, I probably would have wiped them out.
Oh yeah, well they just have a 3-up save. They don't have invulns or anything.
Yeah, so a 4.
So, they do well when they get somewhere, but they are relatively soft when it comes to taking
Yeah,
shoot.
the Immortals would have probably killed a couple with their -2, and those mass shots at AP -1 would have actually really done some good damage.
Well, of course, honestly, the only reason why they are alive is because the assault intercessors, with again another salamander stratagem, kept you from shooting at them that first turn because they were your original target.
Yeah, so it's overall, ultimately it's partially new. I mean, like the overall tactics were sound: deep strike first, take up space, do a lot of damage, wipe out a unit, or cause a new front to appear. Have my units. My overall battle plan I try to play basically the same way. Always try to disrupt, surround, and target the most important units to winning the game and the biggest threats. And so for this, it was mostly just like I didn't expect certain things to go the way they did. Totally thought that Chronomancer was better at melee than I thought. Actually, probably one of the absolute biggest things was the Monolith, when it exploded, killed the Technomancer, because he was very strong. He could have healed and repaired a lot.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that guy. That was actually a big deal.
Yeah, so like out of nowhere, so even still, like, so what I was going to do is going to have my Necron Warriors go into the tar pit of the Assault Terminators, and I use my Resurrection Orb and just keep you there. So Resurrection Orb with all that stuff. Oh my god, just forgot. Necron Warriors get to reroll 1s on the Resurrection thing. Yeah.
That probably would have been probably would have been a relatively big deal.
Yeah.
I think I wiped out that squad to maybe within 1 or 2.
So the thing I did notice is that my flayed ones, if I would have went bigger with a bigger squad, it would have been better for them. They would have survived because the aggressors just barely killed them. That's the thing. If I would have just had a few more guys.
Well, the -1 to hit with those power fists, means that they have some good damage, but they they lose out a lot on those hits.
So for this game, they probably would drop. If I wanted to play Elite, I would have dropped the Monolith. I'd either go big with the Monolith or go home with the Monolith, so it's really hard to tell.
The Monolith was really cool, no lie.
Yeah.
But it did end up drawing a lot of fire, which is what ended up doing it in the Eradicator.
However, it was tough. So if I had 3 Monoliths, they would have all survived. Easy.
Oh yeah, because then you literally just a giant wall of monoliths with people teleporting in front of it, and that would have been a whole thing.
Yeah.
But I did like how the Salamanders played. So moving from Imperial Fists before, where they were literally the bottom rung of Space Marines, it's nice to be moving up in the strength level. So the Salamanders actually have some really good just combinations with Flamers and Meltas, and I think that's what made this list as strong as it was, just because all the +1s for Flame and Melta damage or wound rolls, the thing for max Flamer shots, like turning Flamers into pistols, like those are all really nice.
Yeah, that's actually a very strong thing. Flamers into pistols without losing your strength. Yeah, that's a big deal.
And so I was surprised by how well it flowed together. I was a little worried about this list, but it did well. If I were to swap anything, it might be just Adrax Agatone, because they have a relic Thunderhammer as well. That's just really mean. But then I could actually put stuff onto the character or whatever. But Vulcan was strong. The one time he fought just like a 2 half-wounded Scarab, he was very strong. Anyway, but yeah. So no, I was surprised by how well it worked. I mean, no, I was very surprised. Pleasantly surprised, you could say. But yeah, if I did swap something, I would swap out Adract with just a regular Terminator, because I took him because I thought he was going to be able to deep strike with the Terminators, but then I realized he's just actually a regular Space Marine guy, but he has a 2-up save, which is what threw me off. But anyway, I thought it was a nice.
All right, so GG's, and see what we play next week. Bye.